Tonight, we are exploring every forbidden branch of magic Hogwarts will not teach. Not simply dark spells or cursed objects, but entire fields of magical knowledge that exist beyond the edges of the curriculum, hidden behind locked doors, chained books, ministry restrictions, and the quiet judgment of generations of witches and wizards who decided that certain secrets should not be placed into young hands. As you settle in, perhaps returning after many evenings spent wandering the corridors of Hogwarts with us, or perhaps joining for the very first time, you might leave a small note of which night. This is for you. Then allow the castle to grow still around you. The torches are burning low. The students have long since returned to their dormitories. Somewhere deep within the library, beyond rows of ordinary textbooks worn smooth by decades of study, a single iron gate waits in silence. The Hogwarts library contains thousands of volumes, many of them ancient. Students borrow books on potion making, transfiguration, astronomy, magical creatures, and the long history of wizarding Britain. Yet tucked away in the rear of the library stands the restricted section, a collection so unusual that first-year students are forbidden from entering it. In Harry Potter's first year, when he searched for information about Nicholas Flamel, he slipped beneath his invisibility cloak and wandered into those forbidden aisles. There he found books that screamed when opened. One volume emitted a horrifying shriek that echoed through the darkness and nearly exposed him to Argus Filch. Even before Harry understood what he was looking at, the message was clear. Not all magical knowledge was intended to be easily found. The guardian of this collection was Madame Irma Pintz, the library's fiercely protective librarian. Students required written permission from professors to access many of the books locked inside. Her vigilance often appeared excessive to young minds eager for secrets, yet the contents of the restricted section justify her caution. Among the works mentioned throughout the series are books discussing curses, hexes, dark creatures, and dangerous magical theory. Hermione Granger, who rarely broke rules, understood from her earliest years that certain texts were not restricted merely because they were advanced. They were restricted because knowledge itself could become a weapon. A spell learned from a page can travel farther than the wizard who first wrote it. Yet this raises an uncomfortable question. If Hogwarts exists to educate young witches and wizards, why deliberately hide portions of magical knowledge from them at all? The founders of the school never intended Hogwarts to be a place of ignorance. Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin built an institution devoted to magical learning. Ravenclaw herself famously valued wit and wisdom above all else. The castle encourages curiosity at every turn. Secret passages reward exploration. Moving staircases challenge certainty. Even the ghosts preserve fragments of history. And yet, somewhere along the way, the wizarding world concluded that curiosity required boundaries. You can see those boundaries reflected throughout the curriculum. Students spend years mastering charms, herbology, transfiguration potions, and astronomy. They learn to levitate feathers before they learn to summon objects. They study defensive magic extensively. But one subject stands apart from the rest. Defense against the dark arts does not teach students how to become masters of dark magic. It teaches them how to survive encounters with it. The distinction is subtle but important. The classroom exists because dark magic is real. The curriculum exists because dark magic is dangerous. By Harry's time at Hogwarts, the subject carried an additional shadow. Decades earlier, Tom Riddle returned to Hogwarts seeking the defense against the dark arts position. By then, he had already transformed into a far darker figure than the brilliant student remembered by many teachers. Albus Dumbledore refused his application. After that meeting, the position became cursed. No professor managed to hold the job for more than a single year. The curse endured for decades, affecting teachers from Quirinus Quirrell and Gilderoy Lockhart to Remus Lupin and Alastor Moody's impersonator. Even after Voldemort's first downfall, the curse remained active, as though the rejection had left a wound embedded in the castle itself. Dumbledore understood better than most where knowledge and danger intersected. Throughout the series, he repeatedly demonstrates an unusual attitude toward forbidden information. He does not destroy every dangerous book. He does not erase every dark spell from existence. In fact, he allows Harry access to difficult truths far earlier than many adults would. Yet Dumbledore also places limits around certain subjects. His office contains countless secrets, but those secrets are revealed gradually. When Harry finally learns about Horcruxes, Dumbledore carefully controls how much information is shared and when. He behaves less like a gatekeeper of facts and more like a man handling explosive materials. The deeper you look into wizarding history, the more often this pattern appears. Knowledge is preserved but restricted. Dangerous artifacts are studied but hidden. The Ministry of Magic employs specialists who investigate mysteries ordinary citizens never encounter. Entire departments operate beyond public view. The restricted section is therefore not an exception. It is merely the most visible example of a larger philosophy. Wizarding society does not fear ignorance. It fears what happens when power outruns wisdom. This becomes especially interesting when you remember that many Hogwarts graduates eventually enter professions requiring knowledge of forbidden subjects. Aurors investigate dark wizards. Curse breakers, employed by Gringotts, navigate ancient magical traps. Unspeakables, in the Department of Mysteries, study phenomena most witches and wizards never even hear about. These careers demand expertise beyond the ordinary curriculum. The forbidden branches of magic are not erased from society. They wait until someone is considered ready or necessary enough to encounter them. Perhaps that is why the restricted section feels so unsettling when you picture it late at night. The danger is not merely that terrible spells exist within those books. The danger is that someone carefully chose which books belonged there. Every chained volume represents a decision made by generations of magical authorities. This knowledge should remain hidden. This knowledge should require permission. This knowledge should not be taught to children. The shelves themselves become a record of fear. And so before we descend into the darkest corners of magical learning, imagine yourself standing once more among those silent aisles. Dust hangs motionless in the air. Candlelight glimmers across old leather bindings. Somewhere beyond the iron gate rests a book, explaining a curse, a ritual, or a branch of magic so dangerous that Hogwarts chose not to place it on any classroom timetable. The question is not whether such knowledge exists. The question is why so many powerful witches and wizards agreed it should remain hidden in the first place. Why would a school devoted to magical education deliberately avoid teaching some of the most powerful spells ever created? The answer begins with 3 incantations, whose names alone carry weight throughout wizarding history: Avada Kedavra, Crucio, and Imperio. The Ministry of Magic classified them as unforgivable curses centuries before Harry Potter was born. Their use against another human being carried a sentence of life imprisonment in Azkaban. By Harry's 4th year, most students knew the names only as frightening rumors. Then, in a defense against the dark arts lesson, Professor Moody brought them into the light. The lesson took place in September of 1994. Moody, who was secretly Barty Crouch Jr. under the effects of Polyjuice Potion, placed a spider upon his desk and demonstrated each curse before a classroom of 14-year-olds. First came Imperio. The spider began performing absurd tricks, moving without resistance, entirely controlled by another will. Then came Crucio. The tiny creature writhed in agony as Neville Longbottom sat frozen in his seat, forced to watch the same curse that had destroyed the minds of his parents, Frank and Alice Longbottom. Finally came Avada Kedavra. A flash of green light filled the room, and the spider died instantly. No wound, no sound, no recovery. What made these curses uniquely horrifying was not their power alone. The wizarding world contains countless dangerous spells. Fiendfire can consume entire buildings. Reducto can shatter stone. Even a poorly executed blasting curse can kill. The difference lies in intent. Barty Crouch Jr. explained that a wizard could point a wand at him and recite Avada Kedavra, yet produce little more than a nosebleed unless genuine murderous intent accompanied the spell. The unforgivable curses require something deeper than technical skill. They demand a willingness to dominate, torture, or kill. This is where Hogwarts draws one of its clearest lines. Students learn defensive counter curses, they practice shield charms, they study encounters with dark creatures. Yet they are never taught how to cast the unforgivable curses as part of the curriculum. The distinction reflects a larger principle within magical education. Knowledge of danger is necessary. Participation in that danger is not. A student may learn what dragonfire can do without being encouraged to stand inside it. Yet even this boundary becomes complicated under closer examination. During the First Wizarding War, the Ministry authorized Aurors to use unforgivable curses against Death Eaters. Bartemius Crouch, Senior, desperate to combat Voldemort's growing army, granted powers that would have been unthinkable during peacetime. Suddenly, curses that normally guaranteed imprisonment became legal tools of war. The same spell could be a crime in one decade and government policy in another. For a society that claims certain magic is absolutely forbidden, that inconsistency raises difficult questions. The careers of many famous witches and wizards reveal similar contradictions. Severus Snape spent much of his life studying dark magic. As a student, he invented spells such as Sectum Sempra and collected knowledge that alarmed even some of his classmates, yet he eventually became one of Voldemort's most important opponents. Albus Dumbledore possessed extensive understanding of dark magical theory. He recognized Horcruxes when most experts could barely discuss them. He knew how curses behaved, how dark artifacts functioned, and how ancient magical protections could be broken. Their knowledge of darkness became part of their ability to resist it. Bellatrix Lestrange demonstrates the opposite path. Her mastery of the Cruciatus Curse became infamous throughout both wizarding wars. when she tortured Frank and Alice Longbottom after Voldemort's first defeat, she did so with such cruelty that the damage proved permanent. Years later, she used the same curse against Hermione Granger at Malfoy Manor. Bellatrix illustrates a truth that Hogwarts understands all too well. The dark arts are not simply a collection of techniques. They reward certain impulses within the caster. Power arrives hand in hand with corruption. Perhaps nowhere is this clearer than in the story of Lord Voldemort himself. As Tom Riddle, he excelled academically. He was charming, intelligent, and admired by many teachers. Horace Slughorn described him as perhaps the most brilliant student Hogwarts had ever seen. Yet while mastering ordinary subjects, Riddle quietly pursued knowledge beyond the curriculum. He sought secrets hidden in forbidden books. He investigated ancient magical practices. He asked questions other students never considered asking. The road toward becoming Voldemort did not begin with open violence. It began with curiosity untethered from conscience. That idea echoes throughout Hogwarts history. The school does not fear intelligence. It celebrates intelligence. Hermione Granger's achievements are admired. Minerva McGonagall encourages excellence. Albus Dumbledore himself was considered a prodigy. What Hogwarts fears is brilliance, combined with a willingness to ignore moral limits. Tom Riddle demonstrated that a gifted student can become far more dangerous than an ignorant one. Knowledge magnifies whatever already exists within the heart of the person wielding it. A popular fan theory suggests that the restricted section expanded significantly after Voldemort's rise, with certain texts removed from general circulation because they mirrored paths Riddle himself had followed as a student. Canon never confirms this directly. Still, the theory reflects an understandable concern. Imagine being a teacher who witnessed one of the brightest pupils in school history transform into the most feared dark wizard of the age. Every forbidden book would suddenly look different. Every unanswered question would carry a shadow. The deeper mystery remains unresolved. If understanding dark magic helps good witches and wizards fight it, where exactly should the boundary be drawn? Remus Lupin taught students how to confront boggarts. Alastor Moody exposed his class to the reality of the unforgivable curses. Dumbledore shared knowledge of Horcruxes with Harry because the war demanded it. Again and again, forbidden knowledge proves necessary. Yet every example comes with consequences. Every door opened reveals another waiting beyond it. And so the shelves of the restricted section grow heavier in your imagination. Somewhere among those volumes are books describing curses far older than the unforgivable 3. Somewhere is a text that explains how dark wizards learn to bend magic toward domination rather than creation. Hogwarts keeps those pages locked away, not because they are imaginary, but because they are real. The school understands a lesson that history has taught repeatedly. Learning how darkness works can save lives. Learning to admire it can destroy them. The line between those two outcomes is thinner than most students realize. Why did even Albus Dumbledore, a wizard who faced Gellert Grindelwald, confronted Lord Voldemort, and willingly drank a potion designed to break the mind, react with visible unease when discussing Horcruxes? The answer leads into one of the most forbidden branches of magic ever discovered, the manipulation of the human soul. Unlike curses or hexes, Horcrux creation does not merely harm another person. It fundamentally alters the caster, It transforms murder from an act into a magical tool, using death itself as a means of reshaping one's own existence. Harry first encountered a Horcrux long before he understood the word. In June of 1993, deep within the Chamber of Secrets, he destroyed Tom Riddle's diary using a basilisk fang. At the time, it appeared to be an unusually dangerous magical object. The diary could think, speak, and influence its owner. It drained Ginny Weasley's life force while projecting a 16-year-old version of Tom Riddle into the world. Only years later would Harry learn that the diary's strange properties came from a terrible source. A fragment of Voldemort's soul lived inside it. The true nature of Horcruxes emerged through a memory preserved by Horace Slughorn. The conversation took place in 1943 when Tom Riddle was still a student at Hogwarts. Slughorn sat comfortably in his office, surrounded by crystallized pineapple and silver photographs, while the polite and handsome young Riddle asked what appeared to be an academic question. He wanted to know about Horcruxes. More specifically, he wanted to know whether creating multiple Horcruxes was possible. Even decades later, Slughorn felt such shame over the conversation that he altered the memory itself before surrendering it to Dumbledore. The horror of the question becomes clearer once the process is understood. A Horcrux requires murder. Dumbledore explains the killing tears the soul apart. The creator then performs a dark magical act, one Rowling intentionally never described in detail, to separate the damaged fragment and place it within an object. The result is a form of magical anchoring. As long as the Horcrux survives, the creator cannot fully die. Physical destruction becomes possible. Permanent death does not. It is not immortality in any noble sense. It is survival purchased through self-mutilation. Tom Riddle pursued this path more aggressively than any known wizard in history. He transformed the diary into a Horcrux. Then came Marvolo Gaunt's ring. Later, he used Salazar Slytherin's locket and Helga Hufflepuff's cup. He eventually acquired Rowena Ravenclaw's lost diadem, hidden for centuries before its rediscovery. Finally, Nagini became a living Horcrux. Voldemort's obsession with the symbolic power of the Hogwarts founders influenced many of these choices. He selected objects connected to magical history because he saw himself as worthy of standing among the greatest figures of wizarding legend. Yet even this was not enough. The most extraordinary Horcrux was created accidentally. On the night of October 31st, 1981, Voldemort entered the Potter cottage in Godric's Hollow, intending to murder Harry Potter. He had already fragmented his soul repeatedly through years of violence. When the killing curse rebounded because of Lily Potter's sacrificial protection, Voldemort's damaged soul shattered again. A fragment attached itself to the only living being present, Harry himself. Neither Voldemort nor Dumbledore immediately understood what had happened. The result was unprecedented in known magical history. Looking back, numerous mysteries suddenly acquire new meaning. Harry could speak Parseltongue, despite having no ancestral connection to Salazar Slytherin. He occasionally experienced visions linked to Voldemort's thoughts. He felt the Dark Lord's emotions with increasing intensity after Voldemort regained his body in 1995. Those phenomena seemed disconnected for years. The Horcrux revelation transformed them into symptoms of a hidden connection stretching back to infancy. Harry had unknowingly carried a piece of Voldemort within him for most of his life. What makes Horcrux magic especially fascinating is how completely Hogwarts avoids the subject. Students study souls indirectly through ghosts, dementors, and magical portraits. They encounter discussions of death and history of magic and defense against the dark arts. Yet Horcruxes remain absent from formal education. Even many adult witches and wizards appear unaware of their existence. When Dumbledore searches for information, he consults rare texts hidden in the headmaster's office and books removed from wider circulation. The knowledge survives, but only barely. This secrecy creates one of the wizarding world's most intriguing contradictions. If Horcruxes are so dangerous, why preserve any information about them at all? Why not destroy every book describing the process? Dumbledore's actions suggest an answer. During the Second Wizarding War, understanding Horcruxes became essential to defeating Voldemort. Ignorance would not have protected the wizarding world. Knowledge ultimately saved it. Hermione Granger's research, Harry's discoveries, and Dumbledore's investigations all depended upon fragments of information surviving somewhere within magical archives. A popular fan theory argues that other dark wizards throughout history may have attempted Horcrux creation, only to fail because they lacked Voldemort's extraordinary magical ability. Canon never confirms additional examples. However, the theory gains support from the fact that Horcruxes already existed as a known concept. When Tom Riddle questioned Slughorn, someone had invented the process long before Voldemort was born. Someone committed the first murder in pursuit of unnatural survival. The identity of that wizard remains unknown. There is another mystery embedded within the subject, one Dumbledore never fully answers. Why does Voldemort fear death so completely? Many dark wizards seek power. Grindelwald sought domination through ideology. Bellatrix pursued devotion to Voldemort himself. Yet Voldemort's greatest obsession is always mortality. His Horcruxes reveal a man terrified of the inevitable. Every murder committed in service of soul magic becomes an attempt to postpone a truth all living beings must eventually face. As you sit quietly within the candlelit silence of Hogwarts, the subject feels different from ordinary dark magic. A curse harms another person. A Horcrux harms the creator as well. Each fragment torn away leaves something diminished behind. By the time Voldemort reaches the height of his power, his appearance reflects that inner damage. The handsome student remembered by Slughorn has become pale, serpentine, and strangely inhuman. The transformation is not merely physical, it is the visible cost of treating the soul itself as raw material. And somewhere beyond the restricted section, behind pages most students will never read, lies the record of how one brilliant boy chose to carve himself apart in pursuit of eternity. Why can wizarding magic imitate the return of the dead in several different ways, yet never truly reverse death itself? The question lingers over some of the oldest and darkest corners of magical history. Witches and wizards can preserve memories and pensives. They can leave behind ghosts. Magical portraits can speak with echoes of the people they depict. The resurrection stone can summon pale reflections of those who have passed away. Yet, despite all this, no spell in Hogwarts curriculum teaches how to bring the dead genuinely back to life. The reason becomes clearer the closer you approach the forbidden territory of necromancy. Harry's most chilling encounter with this subject occurred in 1997 during his journey with Dumbledore to retrieve one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. The destination was a sea cave hidden along a remote stretch of coastline. Voldemort had discovered the cave during his years at Wool's orphanage, long before he became the Dark Lord. As a child, he used the place to frighten other children and exercise power over them. Decades later, he transformed it into one of the most heavily protected locations in the wizarding world. Beneath the cliff lay a black underground lake, an island at its center, and a secret far more disturbing than any curse. The lake contained inferi, hundreds of them, perhaps thousands. Harry first saw only dark shapes beneath the water's surface, drifting motionlessly in the darkness. Then Dumbledore explained what they were. Inferi are corpses reanimated through dark magic and controlled by a wizard's will. They do not think. They do not possess souls. They are not ghosts trapped in bodies. They are dead flesh given unnatural motion. Voldemort had gathered them into the lake as guardians, creating an army that could wait endlessly without food, sleep, or fear. When Dumbledore drank the potion protecting Slytherin's locket, the Inferi finally emerged. Pale hands burst from the black water. Dead faces surfaced in the darkness. Harry watched corpses crawl toward the island from every direction. What followed remains one of the most extraordinary displays of magic in the series. Dumbledore, weakened and barely conscious moments before, summoned a ring of living fire. Flames erupted across the cavern. The Inferi recoiled immediately. Fire, unlike many spells, remained one of their few effective weaknesses. That encounter reveals something important about the nature of necromancy in Rowling's world. Reanimated corpses are not alive. Voldemort did not conquer death. He merely learned how to exploit what death leaves behind. The body can be moved. The soul cannot be recalled. This distinction appears repeatedly throughout wizarding lore. The dead may leave traces. They may leave memories. Their voices may echo through magical objects. But once a soul passes beyond a certain boundary, even the greatest wizards cannot simply summon it home. The clearest example appears in the tale of the Resurrection Stone. According to the tale of the three brothers, death granted the second brother a stone capable of recalling the dead. Centuries later, that stone became one of the Deathly Hallows and eventually passed into the possession of Marvolo Gaunt, before reaching Voldemort and then Harry. Yet when Harry used it during the Battle of Hogwarts, the figures who appeared were not fully restored people. James Potter, Lily Potter, Sirius Black, and Remus Lupin walked beside him, spoke with him, and offered comfort. They seemed real, but they remained separate from the living world. None could return permanently. This limitation fascinated Dumbledore. He understood the Hallows better than almost anyone, yet he never described the Resurrection Stone as a means of defeating death. In King's Cross, after Voldemort's failed killing curse, Dumbledore explained many mysteries to Harry, but he never suggested that true resurrection had occurred anywhere in recorded magical history. The Hallows themselves, among the most legendary magical objects ever known, could only bridge the gap temporarily. They could not erase it. The Ministry of Magic recognized the danger of this kind of knowledge long ago. Inferi were officially classified as dark creatures. Aurors received training regarding their behavior and weaknesses. During Voldemort's rise, reports of Inferi sightings caused widespread fear across Wizarding Britain. Cornelius Fudge initially resisted acknowledging the threat, partly because admitting their presence would mean admitting Voldemort's return. Even experienced ministry officials reacted uneasily when the subject arose. Few magical practices carried such an immediate association with the darkest forms of wizardry. What makes necromancy particularly unsettling is how closely it resembles something many people desperately desire. Throughout history, grief has driven individuals toward forbidden knowledge. The second brother in Beedle the Bard's Tale wanted to see his lost love again. Harry longed for his parents. Dumbledore spent years haunted by the death of his sister Ariana. The temptation is understandable. If magic can levitate objects, transform animals, and alter memory itself, why should death remain beyond its reach? Yet every canonical example points toward the same answer, because death is not merely another magical problem waiting to be solved. A popular fan theory suggests that Voldemort's obsession with Horcruxes and his use of Inferi stemmed from the same psychological source. He feared death so profoundly that even lifeless corpses became useful tools in his campaign against it. Canon supports part of this interpretation. Voldemort repeatedly seeks ways to escape mortality. What remains uncertain is whether he ever genuinely believed death could be conquered completely. His actions suggest he was less interested in understanding death than in avoiding it. As the candlelight flickers against ancient library walls, necromancy begins to feel different from the other forbidden branches of magic. The danger is not simply that the spells are dark, it is that they exploit one of the deepest human desires. A curse offers power, a Horcrux offers survival. Necromancy offers something even harder to resist, the illusion that loss can be undone. Hogwarts refuses to teach such practices because the promise at their center is fundamentally false. The dead can leave shadows. They can leave memories. Sometimes they can even leave voices. But beyond a certain point, the wizarding world insists upon a truth that neither Voldemort nor any other dark wizard has ever managed to overturn. Death remains a door that opens only one way. Why are some of the strongest magical protections in the wizarding world created not by wand work, but by promises, sacrifice, and blood? It is one of the strangest contradictions in magical history. Hogwarts students spend years mastering incantations, memorizing wand movements, and learning complex magical theory. Yet some of the most powerful forces ever encountered by Harry Potter require neither elaborate spell casting nor extraordinary magical talent. Instead, they emerge from bonds between people. They arise from vows, family ties, and acts of devotion so profound that magic itself seems to recognize them. The most famous example occurred on the night of October the 31st, 1981. Lord Voldemort entered the Potter cottage in Godric's Hollow, intending to kill Harry. James Potter attempted to hold him off and was murdered. Lily Potter, however, was offered a choice. Severus Snape had begged Voldemort to spare her life, giving Lily an opportunity to step aside. She refused. Instead, she placed herself between Voldemort and her son. When the killing curse struck her, something ancient and extraordinary occurred. Her willing sacrifice created a magical protection that Voldemort neither anticipated nor understood. Years later, Dumbledore explained the nature of that protection to Harry. Lily's sacrifice left a mark upon him. It became a shield carried in his very blood. When Voldemort attempted to murder Harry moments later, the curse rebounded and destroyed his physical body. This was not a charm taught in classrooms, no textbook assigned to students to practice sacrificial protection. The magic emerged from a decision freely made. Dumbledore repeatedly describes love as a force underestimated by Voldemort, and Lily's sacrifice stands as the greatest example in the entire series. The protection did not end in Godric's Hollow. Dumbledore strengthened it through another ancient magical arrangement. He placed Harry with Petunia Dursley, Lily's sister, at number 4 Privet Drive. Petunia's blood relationship to Lily allowed the protection to continue as long as Harry could still call that house home. For years, Voldemort and his followers could not attack Harry there directly. The protection endured until Harry reached adulthood and the enchantment naturally expired. Many readers focus on the misery Harry experienced at the Dursleys. Yet Dumbledore's decision rested upon one of the oldest forms of blood magic known to wizard kind. Blood appears again during Voldemort's resurrection in June of 1995. In the graveyard at Little Hangleton, Peter Pettigrew performed a ritual using 3 specific ingredients: bone of the father, unknowingly given; flesh of the servant, willingly sacrificed; blood of the enemy, forcibly taken. Harry's blood became a central component of the ceremony that restored Voldemort's body. Voldemort believed he was solving a problem. By using Harry's blood, he hoped to bypass Lily's protection. In a sense, he succeeded, yet he also made a catastrophic mistake. Dumbledore later revealed the hidden consequence. Because Voldemort carried Lily's protective magic within his new body, a living connection between Harry and Voldemort remained. As long as Voldemort survived, a tether to life persisted for Harry. During the final confrontation in the Forbidden Forest, this detail became crucial. Voldemort believed he was killing Harry permanently. Instead, he destroyed only the fragment of his own soul residing within Harry. The blood he had stolen years earlier helped preserve Harry's chance to return. Once again, blood magic proved stronger than Voldemort's understanding of it. Another branch of forbidden magical contracts appears in the Unbreakable Vow. Unlike ordinary promises, this enchantment carries lethal consequences. The ceremony requires 3 participants. 2 individuals clasp hands, while a third acts as bonder, touching their joined hands with a wand. As each promise is spoken, a ribbon of magical fire wraps around their wrists. If the vow is broken, death follows automatically. No court is required, no investigation occurs. The magic itself enforces the agreement. The most famous unbreakable vow in the series occurs in Spinner's End during the summer of 1996. Narcissa Malfoy desperately fears for her son, Draco, who has been assigned a mission by Voldemort. Bellatrix Lestrange distrusts Severus Snape and questions his loyalty. Narcissa therefore asks Snape to swear an unbreakable vow. He promises to protect Draco as much as possible. He promises to assist him in completing the Dark Lord's task. Finally, he promises that if Draco fails, he himself will carry out the deed. Moments later, magical fire seals the contract. The scene becomes far more significant when viewed in hindsight. Months later, atop the astronomy tower, Draco cannot bring himself to kill Dumbledore. Snape then casts the fatal curse instead. Readers often focus on the emotional impact of Dumbledore's death. Yet beneath the tragedy lies the machinery of magical obligation. Snape is not merely following orders, he is navigating a web of promises involving Dumbledore, Narcissa, Draco, and Voldemort. The unbreakable vow transforms words into something approaching destiny. Blood and contracts appear elsewhere throughout magical society as well. The Goblet of Fire creates a magically binding agreement for Triwizard champions. When Harry's name emerges unexpectedly in 1994, nobody fully understands how the contract can be broken. The adults never seriously discuss allowing him to withdraw. The magical obligation itself seems to demand compliance. Even Albus Dumbledore, who bends rules when necessary, treats the binding nature of the goblet with complete seriousness. Whatever ancient enchantment governs the tournament, it operates beyond ordinary legal authority. This raises an intriguing possibility. Some branches of magic appear older than the structured spellcraft taught at Hogwarts. Wand movements can evolve. New charms can be invented. Yet blood protections, magical vows, and sacrificial enchantments feel ancient, almost elemental. They resemble laws woven into the foundations of the magical world, rather than techniques developed by individual wizards. A popular fan theory even suggests that these forms of magic predate modern wand use entirely, surviving from an era when magical power was understood through ritual, kinship, and obligation. Canon never confirms this idea, but the age and consistency of these enchantments make the theory difficult to dismiss. As you listen to the castle settle into silence around you, this branch of forbidden magic feels different from Horcruxes or Inferi. Those practices seek to dominate natural limits. Blood magic often works through relationships instead. Lily protects Harry because she loves him. Petunia shelters him because she shares Lily's blood. Snape binds himself through a vow because promises matter. The power comes not from forcing reality to submit, but from connecting people together so deeply that magic itself responds. Hogwarts rarely teaches such knowledge directly. Perhaps that is because no classroom can manufacture the conditions required. Ancient blood magic begins where ordinary spellcasting ends, in the quiet space where choice, sacrifice, and loyalty become stronger than any incantation. How many magical creatures roaming the wizarding world are truly natural, and how many began as dangerous, magical experiments long forgotten by history? Hogwarts students spend years studying fantastic beasts through textbooks like Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. They learn about hippogriffs, bowtruckles, grindylows, and nifflers. Yet hidden among the pages of magical zoology are creatures whose origins reveal something far darker. Some were not simply discovered, some were created, and once created, they proved impossible to fully control. The most infamous example is the basilisk. By Harry's second year, rumors of the monster of Slytherin's chamber had circulated for centuries. Students whispered about attacks, mysterious voices in the walls, and the legend of Salazar Slytherin leaving behind a secret weapon. When the truth finally emerged in 1993, Harry discovered not merely a giant serpent, but one of the most dangerous magical creatures ever recorded. The basilisk dwelling beneath Hogwarts was enormous, capable of killing with a direct stare and petrifying victims who saw it indirectly through reflections, cameras, ghosts, or water. What makes the creature especially fascinating is that its creation is known. According to magical sources cited throughout wizarding lore, a basilisk is produced when a chicken egg is hatched beneath a toad. The process was discovered by the medieval dark wizard Herpo the Foul, one of the earliest known parcel mouths. Herpo lived in ancient Greece and achieved notoriety for multiple dark magical innovations. Many historians also credit him with creating the first Horcrux. Whether viewed as a genius or a monster, Herpo left behind a legacy that stretched across centuries. One man's experiments altered magical history. The wizarding world eventually outlawed basilisk breeding. The ban appears in regulations enforced by the Ministry of Magic, largely because controlling such creatures proved nearly impossible. Yet laws did not erase the knowledge. Salazar Slytherin somehow acquired a basilisk and concealed it within the Chamber of Secrets sometime around the founding of Hogwarts in the 10th century. There it remained for nearly 1,000 years. Generations of students walked above it without realizing a gigantic serpent slept beneath their feet. The creature survived because its creator had built an entire hidden ecosystem around it. The story of Aragog reveals a different kind of danger. Unlike the basilisk, Aragog was not artificially created. He was an acromantula, a giant sentient spider originating from distant tropical regions. Nevertheless, his presence at Hogwarts began through human intervention. Rubeus Hagrid obtained the spider while still a student and secretly raised it inside the castle. By 1943, when Myrtle Warren was killed by the basilisk, Tom Riddle falsely accused Hagrid of opening the Chamber of Secrets and blamed Aragog for the attacks. Although Aragog escaped execution, the consequences of introducing such a creature into Britain would continue for decades. After fleeing Hogwarts, Aragog established a colony in the Forbidden Forest. He eventually fathered countless offspring with another acromantula named Mosag. By Harry's time, an entire population occupied large sections of the forest. Their intelligence did not make them friendly. During Harry and Ron's visit in 1992, the spiders attempted to feed both boys to Aragog's children. Years later, during the Battle of Hogwarts, acromantulas emerged from the forest and attacked indiscriminately. A single imported creature had become a permanent ecological threat. The Ministry's relationship with Dementors presents another unsettling example. Unlike basilisks and acromantulas, Dementors are not known to have been deliberately created. Their origins remain mysterious. Yet the wizarding government chose to employ them. For centuries, Dementors served as guards at Azkaban prison. They fed upon human happiness, leaving victims trapped in despair. Their presence produced cold darkness and emotional devastation. During Harry's first encounter with them aboard the Hogwarts Express in 1993, he collapsed while hearing echoes of his mother's final moments. What makes Dementors particularly frightening is their method of reproduction. Rowling later explained that they breed where misery and decay flourish. In essence, suffering itself helps sustain their population. Cornelius Fudge's ministry tolerated this arrangement for years because Dementors appeared useful. After Voldemort's return, however, they abandoned Azkaban and joined the Dark Lord's forces. The decision exposed a dangerous assumption. The Ministry believed it could control creatures that fundamentally embodied despair. It was wrong. Then there are werewolves whose existence blurs the line between curse and creature. A werewolf is not born in the usual sense. It is created through infection. When Fenrir Greyback attacked Remus Lupin as a child, he transformed him into a werewolf for life. Every full moon thereafter forced Lupin through a painful metamorphosis. Unlike many magical illnesses, lycanthropy carried enormous social stigma. Employment became difficult, friendships became complicated. Entire laws were written restricting the rights of infected individuals. Fenrir Greyback turned this condition into a weapon. He deliberately targeted children, hoping to create more werewolves and spread fear throughout wizarding society. In doing so, he transformed a magical affliction into something resembling biological warfare. Hogwarts accommodated Lupin through the construction of the Shrieking Shack and the secret tunnel beneath the Whomping Willow. Yet even these extraordinary measures reflected how dangerous, uncontrolled transformation could become. The castle was not merely hiding a student, it was containing a recurring magical threat. A popular fan theory suggests that many of the wizarding world's most dangerous creatures began as magical experiments whose creators eventually lost control. Canon supports this idea in some cases, particularly with basilisks. In others, such as dementors, the truth remains unknown. What is clear is that magical history contains repeated examples of witches and wizards tampering with forces they barely understood. The consequences rarely remain confined to a laboratory or a hidden chamber. They escape, they spread, they endure. As the night deepens around Hogwarts, the Forbidden Forest feels less like a collection of random creatures and more like a living archive of magical ambition. Somewhere among its shadows move descendants of Aragog. Centuries earlier, beneath the castle, a basilisk waited in darkness. Across Britain, werewolves continue living with a curse passed from one generation to another. These creatures are reminders that forbidden magic does not always take the form of a spell written on parchment. Sometimes it walks on 8 legs. Sometimes it coils beneath stone corridors. Sometimes it stares back through yellow eyes, carrying the consequences of choices made long ago by witches and wizards who believed they could create life without paying the price. If thoughts can be read, memories altered, and wills controlled, what truly protects a wizard's freedom? The question sounds philosophical at first, but within the wizarding world it is alarmingly practical. A locked door can be opened with Alohomora. A hidden object can be revealed through magical detection. Yet the mind itself appears vulnerable to forms of magic that Hogwarts only partially addresses. Some of the most invasive branches of magical knowledge concern not the body, but consciousness. They reach into memory, perception, intention, and identity itself. The Imperious Curse provides the clearest example. Harry first witnessed its effects during Barty Crouch Jr.'s infamous classroom demonstration in 1994. A spider placed under Imperio immediately surrendered control of its actions. It moved when commanded, jumped when ordered, and displayed no resistance whatsoever. Later, Moody cast the curse on several students, including Harry himself. Harry experienced a strange sensation as though all worry had vanished from the world. A calm voice seemed to guide his actions. The temptation was not pain or fear. It was relief. That detail makes the curse especially dangerous. Victims do not necessarily recognize their own captivity. During the First Wizarding War, and again during Voldemort's return, numerous witches and wizards claimed they had acted under the Imperius Curse. Some told the truth, others used the claim as a legal defense. Lucius Malfoy famously avoided imprisonment after Voldemort's first downfall by insisting he had been controlled. Whether every such claim was genuine remains uncertain. The fact that the Ministry struggled to distinguish truth from deception reveals how deeply the curse undermines personal accountability. Harry's unusual resistance to Imperio offered a glimpse of hope. During Moody's lesson, he gradually learned to push back against the magical command. The voice urging obedience weakened. His own judgment reasserted itself. Few students accomplished this. Moody himself seemed impressed, though his motives were later exposed as far less noble than they appeared. Even so, the episode suggests that willpower can sometimes oppose magical domination. The mind, while vulnerable, is not entirely defenseless. Yet Imperio represents only one form of mental intrusion. Legilimency operates more subtly. Rather than controlling thoughts, it seeks to uncover them. Severus Snape describes it as the magical art of navigating another person's mind. Many readers imagine legilimency as simple mind reading, but the reality appears more complex. Practitioners interpret emotions, memories, intentions, and fleeting mental images. Success depends not only upon magical ability, but also upon observation and psychological insight. Voldemort ranks among the greatest legilimens in wizarding history. Throughout the series, his followers fear lying to him because he often perceives deception before words are spoken. This talent contributes significantly to his authority. Death Eaters understand that concealment may be impossible. Bellatrix Lestrange trusts him partly because she believes his perception exceeds ordinary human limits. Even experienced wizards approach him cautiously. In a movement built upon fear, legilimency becomes another instrument of control. Severus Snape possesses remarkable skill as well, though he employs it differently. During Harry's 5th year, Dumbledore orders Snape to teach occlumency, the defensive counterpart to legilimency. Their lessons quickly become some of the most uncomfortable encounters in the series. Snape repeatedly enters Harry's memories, exposing childhood humiliations, private fears, and painful experiences. Harry resents the invasion. Snape remains impatient. The arrangement fails largely because mutual distrust prevents effective instruction. Nevertheless, the lessons reveal that mental privacy requires training just as dueling does. The existence of occlumency raises another fascinating question. If Hogwarts teaches defensive magic against physical threats, why does it not teach mental defense more broadly? Harry receives occlumency lessons only because Voldemort has established a dangerous connection with him. Most students graduate without formal instruction, yet the dangers are substantial. A skilled legilimens can uncover secrets, manipulate emotions, and exploit vulnerabilities. The omission suggests that certain forms of mental magic remain too advanced, too rare, or perhaps too unsettling for standard education. Outside Britain, another example appears in the life of Queenie Goldstein. Unlike most legilimens, Queenie seems to possess a natural ability. In the 1920s, she effortlessly perceives thoughts around her, often responding to questions before they are spoken aloud. Her gift creates advantages, but also complications. Privacy becomes difficult. Social interactions acquire layers invisible to ordinary people. Queenie's story illustrates how extraordinary mental abilities can blur ethical boundaries even when used without malicious intent. Memory modification pushes the issue even further. The Ministry of Magic employs obliviators specifically trained to alter memories following breaches of the International Statute of Secrecy. Their work protects the wizarding world from exposure. In principle, the practice serves an important purpose. Yet the magic itself remains astonishingly powerful. Entire events can be removed from a person's recollection. Experiences can disappear. Understanding can be reshaped. The line between protection and manipulation becomes difficult to define. Gilderoy Lockhart offers a particularly revealing case study. Long before becoming Hogwarts professor in 1992, he built his reputation by tracking down accomplished witches and wizards, interviewing them about their adventures, and then erasing their memories. He published their stories under his own name, receiving awards and fame while the true heroes remained forgotten. His preferred spell was Memory Charm Work. Unlike Voldemort, Lockhart rarely used violence, yet his crimes demonstrate the profound harm can occur without a single killing curse. A stolen memory can alter a life just as surely as a physical wound. Hermione Granger later uses similar magic under vastly different circumstances. Before leaving to hunt Horcruxes in 1997, she modifies her parents' memories to protect them from Voldemort's followers. She removes herself from their lives and sends them to Australia. The act is heartbreaking, precisely because her intentions are loving. Rowling presents the decision as a sacrifice rather than a violation. Even so, the episode underscores how morally complex memory magic can become. The same branch of magic enables both Lockhart's selfish deception and Hermione's desperate protection. A popular fan theory suggests that the Department of Mysteries conducts far more extensive research into memory and consciousness than the public realizes. Canon never provides detailed descriptions of such work. However, the Ministry's demonstrated ability to alter memories on a large scale implies decades, perhaps centuries, of accumulated expertise. The Hall of Prophecy, the Time Room, and the Veil all indicate that unspeakables study forces most citizens barely understand. It would hardly be surprising if the mind occupied a central place in those investigations. As candlelight dances across the windows of the castle, the forbidden nature of mental magic becomes increasingly clear. A curse can injure the body. A creature can threaten a life. But magic that enters the mind reaches the place where decisions are made and identity takes shape. Hogwarts teaches students how to defend themselves against hostile spells. It teaches them how to recognize dangerous creatures. Yet the deepest battles often occur in silence, behind the eyes, where memory, thought, and willpower meet. And beyond the limits of ordinary education lies an unsettling truth. In the wizarding world, the greatest fortress a person possesses may be the mind itself. Why did the Ministry of Magic preserve entire rooms devoted to time research while simultaneously restricting almost all public use of time magic? Few branches of forbidden knowledge reveal such a contradiction so clearly. Wizards routinely accept extraordinary phenomena, portraits speak, ghosts drift through walls, dragons breathe fire. Yet even among these wonders, time manipulation occupies a category of its own. The Ministry treats it with unusual caution, and Hogwarts almost never discusses it. The reason becomes apparent when even the smallest alteration threatens to reshape events that have already occurred. Most students first encounter time magic through Hermione Granger, though they do not realize it at the time. During the 1993 to 1994 school year, Hermione somehow managed to attend multiple classes scheduled simultaneously. Harry and Ron frequently noticed her appearing unexpectedly or vanishing from corridors without explanation. The mystery persisted for months. Only near the end of the year did Professor McGonagall reveal the truth. Hermione had been entrusted with a time turner, an exceptionally rare magical device authorized by the Ministry of Magic. The object itself appeared deceptively simple. Suspended from a delicate gold chain, the time turner resembled a small hourglass rotating within concentric rings. Turning it once moved the user backward by 1 hour. Multiple turns extended the journey further into the past. Hermione used it throughout the year to attend classes that would otherwise overlap. Arithmancy, ancient runes, and other demanding subjects became possible only because she was effectively living portions of each day more than once. What sounds convenient quickly proved exhausting. By year's end, even Hermione admitted the arrangement had become overwhelming. The true significance of the device emerged during the rescue of Sirius Black and Buckbeak. Dumbledore instructed Harry and Hermione to use the time turner after Sirius had already been sentenced to receive the Dementor's kiss. Traveling back several hours, they observed events they had previously experienced from a different perspective. They watched themselves crossing the grounds. They hid behind trees and stone walls. They freed Buckbeak from execution and ultimately helped Sirius escape aboard the Hippogriff. The sequence demonstrated a crucial rule of Rowling's time travel. Events did not change because of the journey. The journey had always been part of the events. This distinction separates Harry Potter's time magic from many other fictional versions. Harry initially believed someone mysterious had cast a Patronus powerful enough to repel hundreds of Dementors beside the lake. Later, he realized that he himself had performed the feat after traveling back in time. The rescuer and the rescued were the same person. Cause and effect formed a closed loop. Rather than rewriting history, the time turner fulfilled it. Dumbledore understood this immediately. Harry understood only after witnessing it unfold. Yet even with such limitations, the Ministry imposed strict controls. Time turners were stored within the Department of Mysteries and distributed only under exceptional circumstances. Hermione received hers after formal approval and close supervision. The restrictions make sense when considering the risks. A wizard encountering a past version of themselves could create confusion or panic. Interference with significant events might produce consequences impossible to predict. Even minor mistakes could ripple outward through countless lives. The temptation to alter personal regrets would be enormous. The Department of Mysteries devoted an entire chamber to temporal research. During the Battle of the Department of Mysteries in June 1996, Harry and his friends entered the time room while attempting to escape Death Eaters. There they encountered clocks of every imaginable shape and size. time behaved strangely within the chamber. Bell jars contained hummingbirds that repeatedly aged, died, and returned to eggs before beginning the cycle again. Objects shifted between youth and decay. The room felt less like a laboratory and more like a place where time itself had become unstable. The battle produced consequences, extending far beyond the immediate conflict. During the chaos, shelves holding the Ministry's collection of time turners were destroyed. Glass shattered, devices fell and broke. According to later information provided by Rowling, nearly all Ministry time turners were lost during this event. What had once been one of the wizarding world's most closely guarded magical resources suddenly became far rarer. The destruction effectively removed widespread time travel from British magical society. This development becomes especially interesting when viewed alongside the work of the Unspeakables. The Department of Mysteries exists to study forces ordinary magical research cannot fully explain. Death, thought, love, prophecy, and time all fall within its jurisdiction. The Ministry acknowledges these phenomena as real and important, yet keeps their investigation hidden from public scrutiny. Time receives the same treatment as the deepest existential mysteries. That classification alone reveals how dangerous officials consider it. Rowling later expanded on the subject, explaining that time travel introduces enormous complications even within a magical world. Stories involving time turners risk undermining consequences if characters can simply revisit the past whenever difficulties arise. Her later comments emphasize limitations and dangers rather than unlimited freedom. This perspective aligns closely with the Ministry's cautious approach. Time magic exists, but it remains constrained by rules that prevent it from becoming a universal solution. A popular fan theory argues that far more extensive time research survived than the public realizes. Supporters point to the secrecy surrounding the Unspeakables and the existence of advanced temporal experiments. Canon offers little direct evidence for hidden reserves of time turners after 1996. Nevertheless, the theory reflects a broader suspicion. Institutions rarely abandon knowledge entirely. They restrict it, they conceal it, they move it behind additional doors. Perhaps the most revealing aspect of time magic is what it cannot accomplish. Hermione never uses her time turner to prevent Voldemort's rise. Harry never travels back to save his parents. Sirius Black does not return to erase his years in Azkaban. The boundaries remain firm. Time can be navigated under specific conditions, but it does not surrender itself completely to human control. The wizarding world may glimpse its currents. It cannot command the river. As the castle settles deeper into silence, you can almost picture the time room hidden beneath London. Endless ticking fills the darkness. Clocks measure seconds, years, and centuries. Bell jars shimmer with impossible transformations. Unspeakables move quietly among experiments few outsiders will ever witness. Hogwarts teaches students to respect history. The Department of Mysteries studies the force that creates history in the first place. And somewhere between those two institutions lies a lesson powerful enough to keep time magic beyond the reach of ordinary classrooms. The ability to influence the past is far less dangerous than the desire to do so. What if the most dangerous branch of magic is not dark magic at all, but knowledge about death, destiny, and the forces that govern existence itself? Deep beneath the streets of London, concealed within the Department of Mysteries, lies a collection of chambers unlike anything taught at Hogwarts. Students learn spells, professors teach magical theory. Even the restricted section largely concerns things that can be practiced, cast, or studied directly. The Department of Mysteries is different. Its purpose is not merely to teach magic. Its purpose is to investigate the foundations upon which magic itself appears to rest. The people who work there are known as unspeakables. The title alone carries an air of secrecy. Throughout the series, very little is revealed about their daily activities. Arthur Weasley mentions them occasionally. Cornelius Fudge references them in passing. Yet the Ministry consistently shields their work from public view. This silence is remarkable because the Department of Mysteries is not studying obscure charms or rare magical creatures. It is studying reality itself. Time, death, thought, prophecy, and love all fall within its domain. Perhaps the most famous chamber is the Hall of Prophecy. Harry first entered it during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries in June 1996. Shelves stretched endlessly into darkness, lined with glass spheres glowing faintly in the shadows. Each orb contained a recorded prophecy. Many concerned witches and wizards whose names never appeared in the novels. One, however, concerned Harry Potter and Lord Voldemort. It had been delivered years earlier by Sybil Trelawney to Albus Dumbledore at the Hogshead Inn and preserved by the Ministry afterward. The prophecy itself changed history long before Harry ever heard it. Severus Snape overheard part of it and carried the information to Voldemort. Voldemort interpreted the prophecy as referring to Harry and acted accordingly. His attempt to kill the child led directly to his first downfall. Ironically, the prophecy became important because Voldemort believed it was important. Dumbledore later explains that prophecies possess a peculiar quality. They need not come true, yet the choices people make in response to them can ensure that they do. This creates one of the most fascinating mysteries in the wizarding world. Why does the Ministry preserve thousands of prophecies if many never come to pass? The answer appears to lie in the nature of destiny itself. The Department of Mysteries does not treat prophecy as simple fortune-telling. Instead, it studies the relationship between possibility and choice. The existence of an entire chamber devoted to such research suggests that wizarding scholars regard fate as a force worthy of serious investigation. Hogwarts touches on divination. The unspeakables examine the machinery behind it. Yet even the Hall of Prophecy is overshadowed by another chamber. At the center of a circular room stood a raised stone platform containing an ancient archway draped in a tattered black veil. No explanation is provided regarding its origin. No textbook identifies its creators. The structure appears older than the Ministry itself. Harry hears whispers coming from beyond the veil. Luna Lovegood hears them too. Others do not. The object feels less like a magical artifact and more like a wound in reality. This mysterious gateway becomes central to one of the most heartbreaking moments in the series. During the battle against Death Eaters, Bellatrix Lestrange strikes Sirius Black with a curse. Sirius falls backward through the veil. Unlike other magical injuries, there is no body to recover. No healing spell is attempted. No rescue mission follows. Everyone present immediately understands what has happened. Sirius is gone. the veil is not treated as a portal that can be explored safely. It is treated as a boundary that cannot be crossed in reverse. What exactly lies beyond it remains unknown. Rowling deliberately leaves the question unanswered. Some readers believe the veil marks a connection to the afterlife. Others view it as a manifestation of death itself. Canon offers clues but never certainty. The unspeakables continue studying it. Wizards continue speculating about it. Yet even after all the ministry's research, the veil remains mysterious. It stands as a reminder that knowledge has limits. Another remarkable detail emerges when considering the forces gathered within the Department of Mysteries. Time occupies one chamber, prophecy occupies another, death has its veil, thought appears to have its own area of study as well. Then there is love. Dumbledore repeatedly describes love as a force more powerful and more mysterious than many forms of magic. The department reportedly contains a room devoted to researching it. This fact often surprises readers. Love seems too ordinary to belong beside death and time. Dumbledore would disagree. Throughout Harry's life, love repeatedly alters outcomes that logic alone cannot explain. Lily's sacrifice protects Harry. Narcissa Malfoy's love for Draco leads her to lie to Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest. Severus Snape's lifelong love for Lily shapes the course of 2 wars. Molly Weasley's love for her children fuels her final duel against Bellatrix Lestrange. Again and again, emotional bonds influence events as profoundly as any spell. The Unspeakables apparently consider this worthy of scientific investigation. In their view, love is not merely a feeling, it is a force acting upon the world. A popular fan theory suggests that the Department of Mysteries represents the wizarding equivalent of a grand, unified theory of magic. Time, death, thought, prophecy, and love may seem unrelated, yet each concerns fundamental aspects of existence. Canon never presents such a framework explicitly. Still, the idea helps explain why these subjects receive extraordinary secrecy. The Ministry is not hiding a collection of dangerous spells. It is studying the deepest questions imaginable. Questions powerful enough to reshape how magic itself is understood. And so we arrive once more at the quiet heart of Hogwarts, after traveling through cursed magic, soul magic, necromancy, blood rituals, dangerous creatures, mental manipulation, and time itself. The castle remains peaceful. Students sleep behind ancient stone walls. Somewhere in the library, beyond rows of ordinary books, stands the iron gate leading into the restricted section. Candlelight flickers across old bindings. Dust drifts slowly through the air. Behind those shelves are secrets Hogwarts refuses to teach, not because they are unimportant, but because they lead toward mysteries so vast that even the Ministry's greatest experts still struggle to understand them. And as the final candle burns lower and lower in the darkness, the chained books wait exactly where they have always waited, silent guardians of questions that perhaps were never meant to have simple answers. When you look back across all these forbidden branches of magic, a pattern begins to emerge. At first glance, the subjects seem unrelated. Horcruxes concern the soul, Inferi concern the dead, Time Turners concern history, Legilimency concerns the mind, blood magic concerns family and sacrifice. Yet beneath their differences lies a single question that runs quietly through the entire wizarding world. What should a human being be allowed to control? Every forbidden art we encountered is, in one way or another, an attempt to push beyond a natural boundary, to command death, to reshape memory, to dominate another will, to escape time, to force destiny. The deeper the magic reaches into those foundations, the more carefully Hogwarts chooses to keep its distance. That choice reveals something important about Rowling's world. Power is never presented as evil by itself. Dumbledore is immensely powerful. McGonagall is powerful. Kingsley Shacklebolt, Hermione Granger, and Harry Potter all possess extraordinary magical ability. The difference is not found in how much power a person holds. It is found in what they believe power is for. Voldemort sees magic as a means of control. He wants mastery over death, over fear, over other people, over fate itself. The heroes, by contrast, repeatedly use magic to protect rather than possess. They accept limits that Voldemort cannot bear to accept. In many ways, the entire conflict of the series grows from that single difference. You can see it most clearly in the contrast between Horcruxes and sacrifice. Voldemort tears apart his soul to preserve his own life. Lily Potter gives up her life to protect someone else. Both acts create powerful magic. Both alter the course of history. Yet one leaves behind emptiness while the other creates protection strong enough to survive for years. Rowling returns to this contrast again and again. The deepest magic is not necessarily the oldest spell or the rarest ritual. Often it is a choice, a promise kept, a sacrifice made, a refusal to betray what matters most. The same idea echoes through memory, prophecy, and time. Harry cannot change the past to save his parents. Sirius cannot return through the veil. Dumbledore cannot undo Ariana's death. Even the greatest wizards remain subject to certain realities. And yet the story never presents this as hopeless. Instead, meaning comes from what people choose to do within those limits. Harry walks into the Forbidden Forest, knowing what awaits him. Snape protects Harry for years, despite receiving little gratitude in return. Narcissa lies to Voldemort because her son matters more to her than victory. Time, death, and destiny all remain larger than any individual, but choice remains powerful. Perhaps that is why the Department of Mysteries feels so appropriate as the final destination of this journey. The unspeakable study death, thought, love, time, and prophecy, because those are the forces that shape every life, magical or otherwise. Their existence reminds you that even in a world filled with moving staircases and flying broomsticks, the greatest mysteries are still the oldest ones. What is a soul? Why do people love? What happens after death? Can destiny be changed? Hogwarts teaches spells. The Department of Mysteries studies the questions behind the spells. And so, as the night grows quieter and the castle settles into sleep, you find yourself once again in that distant corner of the Hogwarts library. The shelves stand silent beneath the glow of a few remaining candles. The iron gate still guards the restricted section. Behind it rest books on forbidden curses, ancient rituals, lost creatures, shattered souls, and mysteries no classroom could fully explain. Yet perhaps the greatest lesson hidden among those volumes is not how much power magic can grant. It is how often wisdom consists of knowing where power should stop. The final candle flickers softly. Dust drifts through the still air. And somewhere beyond the gate, a chained book waits patiently in the darkness, keeping its secrets until morning.